This is an older EG bike. It's the Enterprise, and the first thing I noticed about it is this sort of unique battery pack on the back. It's got this cool handle, it's removable, but it's relatively small. It's like 25 volt, 10 amp hour, and a smaller 200 watt motor. So it's not the most powerful bike, but it's pretty efficient. And you know, you don't get quite as much weight hanging way off the back. And so I actually have never seen one of these in person before, but I'm here at Myron's Extreme Machines with Sam. How's it going?
Good, good, good.
You're the owner, and it's home of the Electric Bicycle Center. Okay, yep. Great. I want to make sure I get all that right. It's been a fun day. You know, we're looking at all these older bikes, and you've got a lot of stories about the industry, and you know the guys that do EG. Is that right?
So the Enterprise was Wayne's first bike that he brought to the market. And there's two other bikes based on this setup with this size motor and this size battery.
Okay.
They're the Barcelona and the Kyoto.
Okay.
Now, if you notice on all the EG brands, every model is the name of a city.
Right.
Maui, Oahu, Zurich, Athens, Monte Carlo, Bali, Copenhagen. Mm-hmm. So why is the first bike called the Enterprise?
And this is his first bike, right?
This was his first electric bike.
Okay.
Now, Wayne's family's been doing bikes for 42 years. It's a second generation, and his dad has been doing it for over 40 years.
Cool.
So when Wayne came out with the first electric bike, he called it the Enterprise. So I had to ask him, all the other bikes are the names of a city. Why is this one called the Enterprise?
Yeah. And
well, it turns out Wayne's a Trekkie.
Okay, yeah, well, there we go. Star Trek Enterprise, right?
So the Barcelona is a version of this with full suspension, and the Kyoto is even a more traditional mountain bike.
Okay.
And they're all 200 watt, 10 amp hour, 24 volt bikes. And they have about the same performance. This is a 21 speed. You've got two levels of pedal assist on the bike, a low and a high. You can also shut it off. Yeah. And you've got a full grip throttle over here, not a half throttle.
Yeah, that's what. And by the way, I've noticed these they have like the holes. Is that for streamers? You know, adding a little bit of fun flair.
I've never seen that, but I guess you could put some tassels on the side. So, this is your base model, very inexpensive bike. This bike comes in well under $1,000.
Okay.
And
it's
the bike's not too heavy.
Not too bad.
Some weight to it.
I weighed it. It was about 55 pounds. So compared to today's bikes, it's like, it's about the same. You're not getting quite as much. You know, the motor's a little bit weaker.
You know, on this bike, I have a lot of customers that are coming in that are financially strapped, and they don't have a license perhaps, and they need that transportation to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So what's the competition here? Maybe an iZip Vibe, or I could think of maybe a couple others. But if you want a mountain bike priced under $1,000, there's not a really big selection to choose from. And certain people want this style of bike. Yeah. And it works really well for them.
Well, to be fair, so we've got a really basic suspension fork here. It looks like maybe 60 millimeters of travel or less. And no lockout, none of that. But you do have those knobbier tires. Looks like 26 inches. And you've got a disc brake on the front, so you're going to get a little bit, you're going to maintain that stopping power if it gets wet and you're on a trail or something. Yeah, right?
Actually, we upgraded this. This does not come with this style of brake. I think that's an Avid BB5.
Avid BB5?
And we upgraded that for this particular bike because the stock disc brake, there's some disc brakes, in my opinion, that are better than others. Yeah. And that just seemed to work a little bit better on this.
So it doesn't squeal as much or jitter?
Exactly right. It had a lot of squeal on the stock setup from Wayne's bike, the way it came out of the box.
Okay, well, so the interesting thing about the rear brake is that it's just a Pro Max V brake. So correct. Still decent stopping power, but just not as good for off-road if you get dirt and water on the rim. Is that right?
Well, some people just want a certain ergonomic when they're sitting on the bike. And this bike is a different style bike than, say, I think it's similar to an eZip Trails, perhaps. Yeah. But an eZip Trails doesn't have 21 speeds. That's true. And here in Fullerton, we have a big hill going up Harbor Boulevard. And when you can get down to that really default low gear, you might not be climbing the hill very fast, but you're only putting out 30–40% on your part. And the bike's going to make it over the hill, and you're not going to break a sweat when you end up at work.
And this is a geared motor, so you get a little bit of extra, like torque, a little bit of power from that versus gearless.
And you know, this bike, it takes you a while to get up to speed. You know, this bike doesn't have that torque that off the line. It's only a 200 watt motor. But once you're up to speed, you're cruising along between 15 and 17 miles an hour, I'd say, is what the top speed of this bike is. Yeah. It almost feels like a little bit of a tailwind pushing you down the road.
So a couple other questions. It's great to have a dialogue about this stuff. I noticed that this bike and several of the other just sort of basic like cruiser bikes around town, they've got these Shimano SIS Index. And I'm always thinking like, okay, these shifters are huge. If I was wearing gloves, I could still activate those versus a grip shifter versus a little trigger that might be smaller. Well, you know, what do you think about those, or what's the benefit?
I've seen a lot of these on quite a few different electric bikes. And the cool thing about this one is it is indexed. But on this side, it's you just, you know, move it around until you get from low, medium, or high.
Okay.
And dial it in there. You know, for some people on electric bikes, they leave it in 7th gear all the time. They never even shift the bike.
Yeah.
It depends on the power of the bike.
So.
Like on a motive, most people just leave it in 6th gear all the time. In this case, you're going to probably be using more gears on this bike because it doesn't have that torquey 500 watt 36 volt battery pack and that motor on it. So this one you're going to use gears a little bit more. So
okay, and what year is this from? Because I mean I can see that, look at that, the wires are actually run through the frame. It's fairly purpose built, but it does appear to be a little bit older. You said this was his first model?
Yeah, you know what? And I would say this bike probably was in the American market 7 years ago.
Wow, and it's 2015, so I'm trying to do the math here. 8. It's like 2008?
I'd say around 2008 is when this bike first hit the American shores. Okay. So it's just been a carryover for the last 7 years. I find with the EZIP brand being kind of discontinued here in America, not being sold through the dealer network anymore, the only way you're going to be able to get an EZIP starting in 2015 is either through Amazon or Walmart online. This is a good entry-level, cheap bike that somebody can get into, you know, for under $1,000.
That's great. And like you said, the brand is still around, EG, and they're growing. I've reviewed several of their other models. It's good stuff, and they're definitely, you know, bringing it up in terms of quality. The Athens is actually one of my favorites, still relatively affordable.
It is my favorite bike priced at a $1,000 price point. There is nothing else on the market, in my opinion, that is as good as the Athens from EG Bike.
Well, and it has 12 magnet sensor, whereas it looks like this one only has maybe 5, so like 5 little dots.
As time goes on, people improve their product all the time.
Sam, I'm gonna hop on this thing and do a little bit more demo footage, but it's always a pleasure to speak with someone who's been carrying a model for a long time and has that insight. I'll see you in just a few.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, back to the specs on this bike. You know, we're talking about the brakes and stuff. It's interesting to see sort of the motor cable comes right out the axle right here, but you do have a kind of a quick release there, so if you need to do some maintenance, you can. I also wanted to point out, you know, you've got the keys there. This is another model where the keys have to be left in when you're riding, so they could jingle, but if you have like a quick release setup, you can kind of pull it out easily. Or rather, oh, there we go, there's the battery. Thank you very much, Sam. Here, let me check this out. It's always fun to kind of look at the specs. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, yeah, 2410, like we were saying. You can kind of carry that in and charge it on or off the bike. That's going to make it a little more convenient. There's the charging port. Perfect, perfect. And of course, you know, taking the battery off is one of the best ways to transport the bike. Like if you're hanging this off of a car rack or something, you're going to reduce the weight, usually by like 5 to 10 pounds, depending on what kind of battery you've got. Mentioned the suspension fork, real basic in the front, but it is going to smooth things out. Got the 26-inch wheels. Mentioned the upgraded disc brake there, Avid BB5. Got these nice alumina alloy platform pedals with decent grip. 3 rings in the front, 7 in the rear, so it's 21 speed total. I believe that's right. Yeah, and here's the index shifter we were talking about with the big kind of a, you can activate that with your thumb on this side or this side. And then the pedal assist. So there's like sort of the low or high pedal assist. Of course, you're going to get more power output in high. And then if you put it into the middle, then it's just throttle mode. So it's neat to see a full range of drive modes in a bike like this that's a little bit more value priced. Here's the battery level indicator. Basic LED. There we go. It lights up. So we're at a full battery right now. When you're riding this bike, you're not necessarily going to see how fast you're going. You will get to kind of determine what level of pedal assist you're in, but you know, it's basic stuff. It's pretty durable, just designed to be, you know, just effective. So I'm going to hop on this thing and maybe use the throttle at first and give you some idea of what that motor sounds like at 200 watts. There's the kickstand, Schrader valves on those tires, tubes. Here's the throttle. Here we go. Sam. Not bad. You can definitely tell it's a little bit slower, a little bit quieter than something like a 350 watt or 500 watt electric bike. And that full twist throttle, you know, at first that's kind of like, whoa, you know, I'm trying to film and throttle at the same time versus a half twist. But it's getting the job done. I'm going to do some pedal assist now, try to show how responsive that is. I'm going to go into the higher level of assist. Yeah, as you might expect, it activates as I start pedaling, and then it takes a little bit longer to kind of cut out, you know, because it's listening for those magnets, and since they aren't spaced as closely together, you know, there's more of a delay. But, you know, not bad. Not bad, especially at about $1,000 or less, as Sam was saying, for this, the EG Enterprise. For the full write-up on this with specs and other EG electric bike reviews, see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com.